All right, guys, this is a special episode. We have done these before, and we're back by popular demand, honestly. Everybody loves the episodes that Adam and I do. Adam Atkinson is my coach. He has been since 2022 now, 3 years. We just hit our 3 year mark, I believe it was, because you took me on when I was in that final season. Then we went into improvement season. So we have a lot to catch up on. But we just wrapped up the 2025 season. We had started prep in 2024 for this season, and we competed in 3 shows together. I say we and together because, like, I literally feel like Adam has been, I don't feel like I do this by myself. So I'm excited to dive into all of this with Adam. We are going to just cover various topics about my prep and the improvement season that led to it. So, Adam, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So, I guess the first thing we should say is you kind of took me on, full disclosure, like when I had been working with another team and I was pretty run down. This was in like my very first prep with you. And we talked about that in our previous episode. So without going into too much detail, I did just want to disclose that to everybody else because this prep in comparison was just so much better because we had a full improvement season together and a full prep. So I feel like not only was it my best prep ever, but it was my best bodybuilding experience I've ever had.
Absolutely. I think that there were just a lot of things that we got to work on in the off season that, I always say past that spike in volleyball and like really coaching can be that way too. Like I got past to you where we literally like I had to dive and save the ball from hitting the
Literally,
sand. And we did what we could. And you were pretty set on your goals. At that point, you were too far deep to say, let's not compete,
yeah,
and I think we learned a lot together. And that's what's great about you is you're always, discovering yourself and always trying to be better. And, you can take good feedback, you can take, hard feedback. And we just knew it was going to be hard for you to lose, coming out of the prep that you had. And, being able to fix like the gut health and the hormones in the off season, keep weight a little bit more manageable. Although we did have to come up a good amount just because we could have maybe detected the gut issues earlier looking back, but we're only given like what we're given at the time. So, at the point where I was like, man, I feel like you should be eating more and we just can't get you up there. Then we looked into the gut health and there wasn't really any damage because I think we did a great job keeping you leaner. And that's always what I have to look back on is we were able to keep you leaner, which made the prep a little bit easier. Your body was a lot less taxed. But I think we got a lot of flack when we first started working together because your cardio was so high, but that wasn't really based off my template. And what a lot of people didn't see is you were no longer training 7 days a week,
exactly.
doing
Exactly.
3 leg days and you know uh,
And jump roping between every set or doing sprints between sets, like these ridiculous demands.
yeah, and I'm not gonna bash because like for somebody who maybe has enough muscle and maybe they're not focused on growing as much, they might train that way. And I'm not gonna say that's wrong because in the right context it could be. Or maybe it's someone who I've had clients who literally only need to grow one body part and I want them to pull back on their other training, so we're doing other types of things to keep them active. So it just all comes down to customization. And I think that's what truly people are looking for in a coach. And, when we exited your prep, we were able to really customize things more because we weren't working off of, it was a way for us to start fresh. And, had we ended your prep, we could have started fresh too. But I think you would have felt really empty by not getting back out there, because you had even made some changes with that team as an athlete that
Mhm.
I think you needed to see where your final form was. And I kind of wanted to see it too, so we could have a productive off season on let's get you a little bit leaner, but how much of that tricep is actual tricep on you? And like we found out that you've got a lot of it.
Yeah.
So so we ended up not really training it so we could do other things like your delts and make the delts look more dominant compared to your triceps. So I think that you always want to focus more on the things you need the most versus the things you don't need. I'd question if someone gave you like 2 tricep days a week if they really had your best interests in heart.
Yeah, for sure. And like you looked at and of course, like for some people maybe that was the right thing. For me it wasn't. And then us working together, like I actually loved that we finished that prep together, even though it wasn't your exact approach. Like I learned so much about you, and I think we learned a lot about my body. And it was a great way to go into improvement season because we reversed into that North Americans after the was it a Sin City showdown and then into North Americans. And then that was like a really positive experience for me as a competitor that I'd never had before. So to actually just experience like peaking in a different way, experience what it's like to be like eating a lot going into a show and actually drinking a lot of water too, like and putting salt on everything. Like it was a great I needed that, I think, in order to actually be the best I could this season. It gave me a lot of hope. And then speaking to your point about the physique, so you mentioned the triceps. So there were a couple of things with my physique, right? Like we were imbalanced. Like my upper body wasn't balanced with my lower body. My lower body was a bit too dominant in comparison. And we were getting feedback that I needed to grow everywhere, but also that balance was going to be more important. So we basically, aside from triceps and arms, like, which I thought that was like such a great call, we trained shoulders and back like crazy. Like we barely touched glutes. I mean, I remember asking you, like, can we throw in some accessory glutes just because I was starting to be like, my glutes, like I was worried.
Yeah. It's funny because you train so much differently than a lot of my other athletes. You're going to see some similarities with some. Like your first time bikini competitor probably needs a lot of development everywhere. We definitely had some balance issues, and man, I tell you what, that's what makes it fun though. And we knew if we gave you more glutes too, like even if the execution was great, which you do a really good job on sending your form checks every week. So that's huge. Or at least sending the first block of them. Honestly,
Mhm.
you're a really well-trained athlete, so you're usually not needing to send the whole 8 weeks worth because weeks 1 and 2 look great, just keep increasing the weight. And for you, even if you're hitting your glutes, well, it is going to get into your legs. And we really wanted to keep your legs from being dominant. And again, your whole lower body was a little bit almost like a mini wellness, right? But just
Yeah.
not as extreme. So we just need to bring your upper up a lot.
Yeah. And we did, which was amazing. Like I loved all of our upper body training days. I loved all of our training days. And then what was cool to me too was how much you decreased my cardio. Like we went from a lot of cardio and prep to like literally 20 minutes a couple days a week. And I remember like at one point there was like none practically other than like you were like, you need to take some mental health walks, girl. Like you need to get out there and walk. I'm like, you're right. Which is actually another point that I didn't know that maybe we should bring up, but I'm gonna bring it up. Like I had some mental health related concerns that were very prominent in this prep that I haven't talked about yet, but I feel comfortable and confident doing so as I'm saying this right now, and I might cry. But yeah, I had finally gotten a diagnosis of bipolar, and I decided to start taking medication, and I'm so glad um, because I would get so depressed, so depressed. Now, granted, bodybuilding is what I think kept me healthy and alive in many ways because you have to nourish your body. So I'm tracking my macros. And as a disciplined athlete, I'm like, I need to hit my macros. And then for training too, like I didn't want to report like I wasn't training. And it was just such a habit for me to go to the gym. So it would almost be weird if I didn't. And I think that was very helpful throughout my life and my perspective on receiving mental health treatment for that after learning things about my family history, which I'm not ready to talk about yet. But after learning about things like that, it just became apparent to me that I had to do that for not just my own life, but also like potential future generations of mine. And now looking back, like I'm so glad that I did. But I remember reaching out to you, telling you like I'm going to start doing this. But it was a huge relief, and you were so supportive in that too, because that was like freeing for me to finally have like an understanding of why I was the way I was for so long. Extremely depressed, but only like hypomanic episodes. But because some people will hear bipolar and they'll like come up with this crazy story because of what media has taught them. But in my life, it was actually incredibly beneficial and has been for my business and for my athletic journey. And then as a kid, like I would do random shit at like 2 a.m., like wake up and like redesign my entire room. Like, so it's been a long time thing, but then also like depressive thinking for so long. So I think us having this really became more apparent too after we treated Desiba. Because remember, do you remember saying to me, like, I think this will help with some of your mental health related concerns, like the depression? And it didn't. And I was like, okay, so maybe I really should do something else about this too. So that played a role in our prep and improvement season as well, mostly our prep.
Absolutely. And, I think that's one thing, we always need to know where to draw the line as coaches on what we treat and how we treat it. And that's one of the things that's really different about me is we have a medical director, a dietetics director on staff. But in this situation, I remember one of the big things I said is, you know, you may need this for a short term or you may need it for a long term. And it may kind of change how you feel and you may have to experiment with a few different drugs just with my experience with working with other athletes and luckily everything's gone really really smoothly for you and it's we just kind of talked about communicating through it and
Mhm.
I think a lot of times we can look at mental health drugs like on Zepic. Maybe you're going through an individually like hard time and you just need to rewire yourself for a short 8 to 12 weeks and then go off of it, change those repetitive, stinking thinking thought
Yeah.
processes, as I like to say. But with you, it was more than that. And, the hope was that I think our biggest concern that we talked about was the drug not changing who you are and how you act and
Yeah.
how you perceive things. Because you've built up so many great things, family relationships, personal relationships. And I didn't want the drugs to change, who you are, how you felt about things. And luckily, I think your doctor was great at what they chose to prescribe. But, that was kind of like the serious conversation. And then also, kind of going back to another thing we touched, the whole process of this, we decided to talk about, pulling prep at any time we felt like it was maybe a
Yeah.
conflict to the mental health and really just figuring out how the meds were working and who you were at the time and who you are now. And I think it's blossomed to be very good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting too because when you like I'm a mental health professional and I should know, that taking medication isn't a bad thing. It's generally very productive. The thing that I was struggling with was like I do all the mental health work. I do all the thought changes. I do all the I'm like, what other coping skills could I possibly try? So I was feeling so hopeless. And then starting medication was just like, I finally found this balance. And then I got hit with the myoclonus and the hemifacial spasms. Remember
I
my
do.
face falling off basically.
Yeah,
So that was the first that was we realized that was caused by the mid stabilizer at first. So now we're good because that was changed, but at the time that was so scary. And I remember being at the gym and I would be doing like shoulder press and my face would just start pulling. It was almost like any sort of tension would create it as well. It was very hard. Or obviously, when you're pushing heavy, you make a facial expression and my face would just get stuck in the lifting position. I can laugh about it now, but at the time it was really scary. It was painful. Like my face was always so sore. Um, and that even now, I still face some of the difficulties with that. It's weird. Like if I make a certain facial expression that was very commonly worked during that time, sometimes it'll still shake, almost like my muscle remembers it. Um, and obviously, I had to go in for like an MRI and do the whole thing, and everything was normal. But it was almost like it was a very scary thing. And when you and I had talked, this is something a listener actually asked. They'd asked like how it felt going into prep. We talked a little bit about this before, but like I was very like resistant because life was so good. And then hearing you say like it's okay if you decide you don't want to do it anymore. And I knew like I couldn't not do it. And now I'm so glad that we did. And something I've appreciated about you is you've always kept in mind not just what we were focused on at that point in time, but also like future goals. Like you knew I want to start a family. You knew I want to have a healthy reverse diet. You knew I wanted to be able to go on trips. You knew these things. I even eloped during prep.
Hmm.
And you were like,
Yeah.
yeah, take the week.
Absolutely. And I think like one thing for our viewers is that I want them to hear is one, thank you for being so involved as an athlete that allows me to deliver that kind of coaching because, you always check in, you're always very accountable. And like I know I do some public Zoom calls, but like you can get just as detailed on a regular check-in as well. And you tend to do most of your check-ins through text, and some of them are longer than others, but you're always really good about letting me know pretty much everything that's going on. I'm usually the first to know things that go
Yeah,
on in your life versus other people, which is
so
great.
true.
And I can see people watching this and being like, I want what they have, and you can have it. It's just you have to grow it and cultivate it with me. And Celeste has done a really great job of that. And I think one of my big things as a coach is I've had a lot of athletes who have been with me for an extremely long time. And, it's just, it's great to cultivate these kinds of relationships. So just like you're building the body, you're building the relationship. And kind of going back to finishing the first prep, we got to do so many trips and experiences together because I happened to be at the shows that you were at, which was an amazing experience. And you also took a lot of time to, whenever you were in Vegas, at least stop to see me and we would train together. So that stuff's always open. And no one should ever be in a position where they feel like their information or private information is going to be leaked. And I think
Mhm.
that I'm really good about, keeping people's feelings in check and just giving them that comfort that if they tell me something, that it stays really private. You really do have to keep people's stuff private, and whether it's PD use or mental health or, things that ththey're going through, things that, they might tell you things that they won't even tell their family, and you just have to
100%.
stay really true to that.
Oh yeah, like I called you after this most recent show and I was like, I am struggling post show and in a way I didn't expect because I'm very tearful lately. But anyway, in a way that I wouldn't have expected. And I think that's because I was like, I'm retiring. I'm done. I'm done competing. It was a decision I made before prep. I knew it was going to be the end. But that came with different feelings post show, and I felt like you were the only person I could really talk to who would understand, or at least be able to help me then move through it and transition better. Um, and it gave me new perspective and something I also feel really safe to tell you things is because you are encouraging. You're not one of those who's just like, well, just do this. Instead you try to find like a solution and you work with your athletes to really understand like, okay, well, what might be causing this difficulty, resistance, struggle? ease even. You're very good at like digging a bit deeper. And you've also kept it real with me. Like I have people always ask, like, what's it like working with Adam? And I'll tell them like how amazing. They're like, yeah, but is he like he seems too nice? Like, is he ever hard on you? And I'm like, I think he knows I wouldn't like that, but he's honest with me when he needs to be honest with me. So, how do you personally like navigate coaching different athletes who maybe have those different needs?
Yeah, my guys probably get the uglier side of me because, they tend to do better with a little harshness, but you know, it it's cultivating the relationship and finding out what people need. I'm definitely never going to like scream at anybody, like we don't want to do that. But at the same time, like when you were talking about post show, I think you had a vision on how it was going to be. And then we just kind of brought you back to you're going in the right direction. Your body's just not there yet. But we're gonna get it there. And I think for you, you're like the way we went about it, you're like, even though that's harsher feedback or something you don't want to hear, you appreciated that it wasn't no, but it's like we're just not there yet.
Oh yeah, it was exactly what I needed to hear. Like I needed to be told like, oh yeah, no, we're on the same page. We're trying to get there. But now is not the time to get there. Like that's what I needed.
Yeah, because I think you had envisioned where you were going to be after prep, that you just kind of thought you were there,
Yeah,
right away, and I'm like,
100%.
yeah, we're just not there yet. But that's oftentimes a lot of things in bodybuilding. Maybe we need more muscle and we thought we had it. And that's shocking because sometimes you won't find that out until your number's not called and you're on the
Mhm.
sideline. It's some things are harsher, but bodybuilding will condition you for hard news. I'm continually learning lessons with my athletes as they evolve. There are different lessons, um, different lessons with learning a new division. Uh, you know, Austin's been amazing for, you know, different learning experiences with functional health and fixing clients, and sometimes we had to give those people hard news like, hey, like we're not in a great position to prep because you have this. And now I had to be the bearer of bad news that's going to take probably your prep time to fix this before we even consider getting on stage. And some people will move on because they don't want to hear that. Some people will appreciate your honesty. But you you always have to do the right thing. I think Mike Davies said one of the best things to me a long time ago that really helped mold me as a nice coach. And he said, being nice isn't always being nice.
Hmm.
And that really resonated with me. And I was so glad that he told me that. And that really developed me as a coach better.
Oh, I think that's such an important message, not just for other coaches, but for athletes too. Like, I remember in volleyball, my mom, I'd go to her and I'd be like, oh, like the coaches are so hard on me sometimes. It's like, I don't understand that I'm outperforming these girls and they're picking on me about how I'm performing. And she's like, it's because they believe in you. It's because they care about you. And my mom would not have sugarcoated that. Like she would have been like, no, because if I wasn't doing well, she'd be like, yeah, that was not your best. Like you need to something happened. You need to change. You need to do better. But yeah, I remember her saying that, and that changed my perspective on coaching for my entire life, from business mentorship to bodybuilding coaching to any coach that I ever had. I was like, they care. That's why they're being hard on me. That's why they're pushing me a little bit more. You were honest with me when the SIBO thing happened and I wanted so bad. I was like, oh, that just took like, it felt like we were putting all this effort. We were so excited to grow for a year. Now it's a year and a half, and part of that had to go into SIBO. And then once we recovered from SIBO, it's like, well, now we've got to reverse from that and we've got to build. And then it just felt even longer. But I look back and I'm like, I am so glad that we took that time because not only did I come out better, healthier, but more muscular. We were able to bring my best physique this year. And actually, I think it was just better for getting to a higher point with food and for lower cardio that made our prep even better. So if you hadn't been honest with me or I hadn't been receptive to that honesty and I was just like, oh, I'm just going to find a coach who's going to prep me because I want to prep like that, that probably wouldn't have been the case as far as our outcomes.
Yeah. And I just had this conversation with a client the other day. Um, I told her I was being firm with her, but only firm because of how much I care. And I think once care is established, people, your best friend can usually tell you some harsh stuff about yourself and you won't take it too harshly. But if it's a complete stranger, you're gonna be like, F you, or I don't
Exactly.
like that. But once people know they're cared about, they'll usually accept firmness well. And I just reconfirmed, hey, I care about you, so this is going to be firm. But the reason I'm being firm is because I care. And
Mhm.
it's totally a great outcome. And that was kind of a newer client, but I wanted to establish that care is being taken.
Yeah, I had a mentor who taught me, and I don't know who was the original quote teller of this, but people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that always sticks with me, especially when it comes to like if I get on like sales calls or I'm emailing people who are inquiring, I make it my mission that even if they choose not to work with me, that they know that they were cared for in that communication, that there are solutions for them, that it's okay if they don't work for me, but they work with me, but they need to probably find help if I do think that they do. That's important to me, because I've seen how that is different than if you just go into it like, well, here's what I know and how I can help you. But if you really are like genuinely passionate about just serving that person in the moment, which you do that all the time. I've seen you at shows do it with people who aren't even your clients. And so people do know how much you care.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see everyone be their best. And I don't have to coach everyone. There's other great coaches who care and do good work also.
So, question, how is it like, do you ever get emails or like chats from clients when you're prepping multiple girls for the same show? And do they ever feel like, oh, how am I going to compete with this teammate or that person? Because I know when I did the Ohio show with teammates, I did the Pittsburgh show with teammates. At neither of those did I feel like anyone was, oh, it's my competition. Like we were all supportive. But I do know that that's a thing for some people, with teams. So how do you navigate that when that conversation comes up, or how have you?
Yeah, so we can always move shows or make sure. I've definitely had this happen a lot, and this is a great question, whoever asked that.
Oh,
Um,
I asked it just now. It's not
okay,
on there. I
yeah.
was just like, I'm curious.
So you have to find out if people care about like being in the same class or not, or maybe they're worried. You got to find out what the worry is. Is the client worried that I'm going to act like so and so's an all-star client and then they don't matter? Maybe that's the experience they had with another coach or something like that. So I always try to have really good backstage presence and accessibility, or even if they're not at my show. We have a lot of timestamps and a lot of things that we do for even emergency communication in case something is missing or lost. So I always tell my clients 10 minutes goes by on a show day without a text, call me because
Yeah.
there's a chance I just didn't feel my phone. I never want anyone to feel like they're hanging, or if you just have an emergency, ring through. So what is the reason they're afraid, or is it just that client generally looks better than them and they don't want to go up against them? Sometimes we'll put them in the same show if they're open to that. And it's kind of a stiffer competition now because it's top two. So if you are in the same class and you're pretty sure so and so is going to win and that other person's second, well, who's your second person out of the 10 who might split that and then they're not nationally qualified and you need to have them do a different show. So it kind of comes down to always doing what's best for the client. I think sometimes you can, as a coach, do things that make you look good by like stacking a show with a whole bunch of people. I've definitely done that before. It didn't work out the best in my you know, I used to always go to Natural Ohio with a big group of people because it was a drug-free show. It was the only drug-free show that we really had access to back then. And it just so happened that I've been known as like kind of the natty NPC coach in the area. So I would always have a ton of girls do that show. And then I kind of stopped doing it as much because I just felt like I'd leave the venue with someone displeased, you know. So I kind of found what I could handle or what I couldn't handle. And, you know, you've got to do what's best for people. Um, One other thing I wanted to add to that too is sometimes people are delusional on how good they look.
Hmm.
And, you know, you can't say, I think you're going to beat so and so that you're telling me you're worried about,
Right.
you know?
Exactly.
But all you can do is encourage them because I could also be wrong also, you know, the
Hmm.
judging's always different. But that's happened to me too, where I'm like, wow, you're the one that's worried. And it's funny to me because they just can't see what greatness they have. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and as an athlete, you are, especially if you've been in this for a long time and you're really trying to compete at a high level, you really are conditioned to see yourself through a critical lens. Um, I think I was way less humble when I first started compared to my last season. Like the humility gained in 10 years is insane, from my first show thinking I should have won because I never cheated on my diet to my last show being like, I definitely should not have won because look at these incredible women next to me. They deserved that. That's a big difference. Both versions of me were 100% on execution. One version of me was just humble enough to admit that girl's better than me. And you learn that and you get conditioned to that. So there's the dark side of that, which is then you start to almost be too critical of yourself sometimes. And that's why I think having a coach is important because they can be your second pair of eyes and be like, nope, you're good. Keep pushing here. We need a little bit more of this and less this. Otherwise, the person who's being very harsh might go, oh, I'm just going to eat a little bit less this week. I'm just going to take away this. I'm just going to do a little bit more cardio and mess with the data that they really need to bring their best.
Yeah, absolutely. I think kind of going back to that question too, you reminded me of something like I think my clients have more so gotten annoyed on the Zoom calls when someone has a great physique, but they're not doing anything they're supposed to be doing. Like every check-in, they're like, I binge, I know I'm not 100%, and they look good. And for my athletes who are doing everything 1000%, it can be a little bit of a slap in the face to them because they don't have the genetics maybe this person had, and they would kill to have it. And, you know, sometimes they'll even message me after the call, like, I wish I had those genetics so I could, you know, um, you know, use my mind with that body.
Mhm.
And I can't say too much in those situations because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus.
Right.
But I usually tell my clients now you kind of see the smoke and mirrors of bodybuilding because that's a great
Mm.
example of somebody with absolutely phenomenal genetics who but they didn't get everything. They didn't get the mind for the sport. So that's what's holding them back. It seems like it should be an easy tweak, but that's their hard. And for you, you've got a great mind, but maybe not the best genetics. But just maybe that determination that you have over time will get you to that body that you're wishing you had right now. And that's always the question, and we never really know. Nick Walker's transformation is insane. And people can say that that's all drugs or anything, but if that were the case, we would all just take that amount of drugs and be that big. But the work ethic that that kid has, I've seen him. He trains here in Vegas or has, and it's insane. And the amount of love for bodybuilding that kid has and passion is what has made him who he is. It it's partially genetics that, he maybe didn't realize he had when he started, but it's a combination of the whole thing. And that's why I love the sport so much, and why, when we're together for years like we have been, we're really able to tap into more than just, bodybuilding.
That's
I had a
right.
guy the other day. He just got his program. He switched coaches. I think he's a little discouraged because it's not similar to what his last coach programmed for him. And he wants change, but he's afraid of change. And it's been really hard for him. And he said, I just need a mental health day. I'm going to miss my first day of training. And I said, so you're going to miss your first day of training when you're scared of the training and
Mm,
stew on it for one more day. I said, not on my watch. We're hitting day one off with chest.
good
Like
for
I said,
you.
I'm harder on my guys. But
I
I
think
said,
that's important.
yeah, I said, you're hitting day one with chest. And he did all of his form checks. So I jumped back in. I knew he was having a hard day. And then the last thing he sends me is him doing the most muscular and smiling. I said,
Love it.
I think we nailed it, right? Like this is a pump of your life and a smile. And he was like, "Thank you for making me do that." And I said, "We're already tapping into you're one day ahead of where you would be than before, you know?"
That. Oh, that's such a great story. Like, it's a great example of how our own fears can lead to sabotage and how borrowing belief from somebody else or getting that push can really go a long way, and why it is important to have the right people, responsive people in your corner too. Someone who can see past that and go, no, this isn't about your mental health. The mental health problem is that you're running from it, not that you need to do it. The fact is, doing it will actually relieve you of that fear. So you encouraged him, and now, and he felt better. And that's another example, just in general. A lot of the times, the things that we fear are exactly what we need to do in order to improve or reach that next level, because you can't get better in the gym without progressive overload, right? And the same thing goes with our mentality. It's this little bit, that little challenge at a time, that little exposure to something that you fear, that tiny step in setting a boundary that you maybe wouldn't have set. It goes a long way. It's progressive overload for your mind.
Absolutely. The intention behind the movement, how you execute the movement, you know, how how your form is, how your weight is. It's all progressive overload. How you think about doing the movement, it's
Mm.
it's all intertwined. It's not just reps and sets.
So true. You know what? I think this is a good time to talk about like what changed from the first show, the second show, and the third show. Because one of the listener asked, like, how did we go from Dave Lieberman? I mean, it was a pretty big difference from Dave Lieberman's show into Chris Hollingsworth's North Carolina Natural. Like you could see that I had dropped, I think it was like 4 pounds on the scale, but like beyond that, like I was tighter, I looked better, I was more polished. I looked great at the Dave show. I'm not saying I didn't, but that was a question that was asked, was like, what were the changes made from the first, the second, and the third to make improvements?
Absolutely. So the biggest change from Dave's show to Chris's show was just a little bit more edge on leanness for us. And we used Dave's show as a longer diet break to de-stress, and then we dove deep again not long after that. I think we gave you a day or two, and then we got back to the grind on Tuesday, if I remember right.
I packed my food that drive home, but I ate like an extra protein bar. And then yeah, and then Tuesday I think it was back on. Or maybe it was Monday when I was home. But yeah, it was fairly soon after, but we did we didn't go too aggressive into that show. We still kind of fed into it. So it did feel like a mini break, especially with the reduction of cardio.
Yes, exactly. So basically just tried to get we knew we weren't our best conditioning yet at that show. But we still knew you were bringing a good enough package to get out there and compete. So I think that you did wonderful. And then it was just bringing in the rest of the leanness. And then the other thing that we did that was beneficial was a little bit of estrogen detoxification naturally. I know this is going to stir a lot of uproar because this is like I'm not on Reddit, but this is the one thing everyone keeps sending me is the stuff about the AIs and like the argument with all the coaches on like what they're doing. But keep in
What's
mind we
AAIs?
oh like serums or selective androgen receptor
Oh, I'm like
or
so illiterate on
yes,
this.
selective estrogen receptor modulators, but we didn't use anything like that. We use calcium diglycerate and DIM to detoxify estradiol. So women tend to have more receptors for estradiol around the glutes. Now, people are probably going to ask, well, why didn't we do that for Dave's show? And I knew that we had more fat loss to accrue, and I didn't want to lower your estradiol too soon. So then we used that for Chris's show, which we basically used DIM and calcium diglycerate. Um, and it does lower estradiol a bit, so then it cleans up those receptors ever so slightly. But then on top of that, we had, was it 3 more weeks of fat loss, I think, or 3 more weeks between the show?
Yeah, it was basically a month because April 4th was Dave's show and then May 4th was the North Carolina show.
Yeah, so this was a way for us to naturally detoxify estradiol, and I really do think that it visibly made an impact directly on your glutes. And um, you know, dosage will be different for everybody. Obviously, sometimes people have allergic reactions to certain supplements, so I don't really want to say like dosage or anything like that. But we also use ashwagandha to manage stress a little bit better. Core Hard is like one of my favorite supplements because it's got the ashwagandha, the DIM. Um, but if you pair that with calcium D, it's a great way to for a natural competitor to get a little bit harder in their glutes, without doing anything extreme. And the truth is, some people may need to modulate estrogen a little bit, and some people won't. And that's just the way of the world. I know everyone wants the answer. We do it this way. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, and honestly, that was a game changer. Like both in the 2022 season and this season, you can see the visible changes. I mean, even going from North Carolina to Pittsburgh, like the glutes were even more, they looked harder basically. Like that tie-in just looked more dense, more mature. At North Carolina, it looked really, really good too. It just wasn't as tight and dense as it ended up looking at Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Although I liked the look at North Carolina so much. And then I felt like Pittsburgh was similar, but like just a little bit harder, which kind of surprised me because we kept eating and eating. Like you were feeding me a lot more than I've ever eaten at that. And I was dropping. Like we got down, I think our lowest was like 106 something. I've never been that small before. And yeah, the fact that and then you fed me up and I mean it was just incredible to see my body handle things that way.
That was such a different week for us too, because you came back right from North Carolina. Your body was definitely a little stressed, and we definitely had some a little bit of a blur on your body, I would like to say. And
Yeah.
I know we talked about this. We had a really paramount decision on whether we were going to lower your intake one day. And I said, let's just go one more day high. I think you're stressed. I think we need a little bit more time up. And that next day, your body started looking better, and you nailed it. I thought that we looked really good at both shows.
Yeah, that game time decision that you made, like I could have never made that on my own. I probably would have reduced, and the fact that you left it high, like I think it made a big difference. It gave us a lot more to work with, and I think it highlighted a lot of aspects to my physique that maybe weren't popping as much before. I also think that Dave's show, it was very insightful for my North Carolina show and for the Pittsburgh show. Because when I went to North Carolina, I was like, I need more, I need heavier pump up equipment. I need heavier pump up equipment. It wasn't heavy enough at Dave's show. The ones that I brought, of course, I'm not saying the promoters, the ones I brought. Um, so I learned from that. I had done some test pumping prior because I had learned like in the gym. Remember, I would send you, I'm like, getting these incredible pumps. I cannot get them backstage. So I was like, I just need to do heavier stuff. And so I just pushed it a bit more at North Carolina. I was like, don't care. I'm gonna eat so much salt. I ate way more salt than I did at Dave's show too. Um,
Hmm.
like tons more. Drank water while doing that. And then I pumped like I'd never pumped before. And that was so, and I was like paying attention to what I was doing because then I did the exact same thing at Pittsburgh. Um, Pittsburgh, there was a little bit too much downtime between the pump and getting on stage. Well, that's like most national shows, it seems.
It is, yeah. It's a change when you're doing the regionals and then you try to do everything similar to nationals. So for most regionals, I'll tell girls when you get glazed, go ahead and start pumping up as a general rule of thumb. But it just kind of depends. You know, you always want to look at the class order. But yeah, that's the salt is, magic for the pump. I always tell you guys if you're ever in a situation backstage where you feel like you can't get a pump, definitely more salt. Like you almost don't even have to ask me. And that's one thing that I like about how I coach is I really do try to teach you guys because that helps you visualize the process, see the process, and trust the process. So a lot of my clients are amazed at what they see when I tell them have a few more pinches of salt, and then I want you to see yourself and tell me how you look. And they're like, I can't believe that that changed my body, but it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and that speaks to like why I was so glad we did that prep in 2022, even because I learned so much just from even that alone. I'm like, oh my gosh, it can change and be different. So yeah, we made some minor tweaks between the second and third show, not a ton. The major, I will say that time frame though between Dave's show and North Carolina show, ooh, that was hard. Like, like there's like time frames between shows that feel fairly good, that 1 to 2 week range. And then there's the ones that just feel like, oh Lord, I don't know how I'm gonna keep doing this. I will admit that's kind of how I was feeling, but I kept pushing and it actually helped that I had gotten a puppy too in this prep because I was doing so much extra movement in general because I had a puppy. So I think that actually helped keep my um NEAT high. Like I was just moving a lot more, not going into couch potato mode. I think it kept me mentally like excited about other things too than prep. Um, but I don't know that I'm missing anything other than some people had asked about like emotions at each show. From my perspective, I enjoyed all of them. We had that amazing backstage experience at Ohio, and you gave me a wonderful pep talk, and got me through that. For those of you who haven't heard that story, go to my Instagram, celestial_fit. I'm just gonna plug it. Y'all can follow me if you're not. And I highlighted it. It's called Crazy Show Day Story or something. But long story short, a lot of pee, a lot of blood, uh, and a wet suit. And Adam basically, and a ruined tan, until Adam made sure that it got fixed. And Adam gave me this pep talk like, no one knows out there that that's just happened. Oh, and so, yeah, I would say that was a very positive show experience otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing is you're back there with a good group of girls who, were helpful. Jamie helped dry your suit off,
Yeah.
one of my coaches, which is amazing because I would have done it, but
Hmm.
it's always nice if another female helps another female with those sorts of things. And she did a great job in stepping up and helping you. And you know what? Each show is going to have a little bit of a different emotional toll, just even from a coach, like ending a season with you.
Mm,
Bittersweet for sure, because you're such a big part of my Tuesdays,
mm,
for the
yeah.
past many years. And we know that we truly want to move you into a position where you don't have to rely on a coach forever, and
Uh-huh.
transitioning you into life outside of bodybuilding, which has been a lot of our focus right now with you know, how, even so we were due for a new training block and I just wanted you to write down some new goals. We can keep it somewhat physique oriented, but it doesn't have to be completely physique oriented. I think a lot of athletes feel like they fail. Our industry is pretty judgmental. I'm gonna say I struggled with this when I stopped competing. If I'm not hammering my legs to oblivion, because that's what my feedback was, it's like kind of bigger everywhere, but I really need some more size in my legs. I'm not a bodybuilder, but thing is, I'm working on things I want to work on now that maybe aren't quite the criteria. And I do enjoy that. There's parts of it, though. I don't do just things I enjoy. I still beat up my legs once a week and I hate it, but it's, you got to do what I call the makers, they kind of make me, it makes it easy to be at my office and do what I love, so doing a few things I don't like is good for us. But going back to programming for you, I did the first week and I'm like, just look at this first week, see if I nailed it, and then I'm gonna work on week two. And you're like, this is a score. So I love
Mhm.
that, and
Yes,
it's
perfect.
bittersweet for me because till we continue again, that may be your last time on stage ever. It may not be, but I'll be dying to get that email when you're like, "Hey, I think I want to give this one more shot." But honestly, like I've lost clients where, they're a few weeks out from winning their pro card and then they went with another coach, but you've put 3 or 4 or 5 years of work into them. Like
Mhm.
that sucks way worse than like helping someone pack their bags in a way and make sure they're super organized for their next chapter of their life and like move them on through graduation, right?
Oh, 100%. Like I, it is bittersweet because there's like a big part of me that's been prepared by you to really live the bodybuilder lifestyle with life too, versus just this identity of bodybuilder. And when I consider like all the goals I sent you, I remember being like, I just want to be big everywhere for me. Like I want to train legs, I want to be strong, I want to be muscular. I don't, but I also wasn't like, I um I want to stay in the bikini criteria. I don't, nope, I don't care. I want to train legs. Like I want to push hard. But obviously I still love the bikini shape and I love the look and I love body. I'm always going to be a bodybuilder, just without the stage. And so, yeah, getting that new plan, it was like even transparently after Pittsburgh, I just did whatever I felt like in the gym. I remember going to the gym and I was like, I did like, I did pull up the training plan we were using. And then I was like, I just want to have fun. And I treated the gym like a playground for like a week and a half and it was great. Like it had been, it was so good for me. I needed it. And I think it primed me for then when you sent this upcoming or this recent plan that I started this week. I love it because doing the playground, like I learned even more about what I wanted from the gym because I just let myself be free and like, oh yeah, there was a version of me that used to work out just because like she loved working out and being at the gym and doing whatever, not because she needed to grow her shoulders and her glutes.
Hmm. Yeah. It's really cool to be able to go out there and um mold yourself into exactly who you want to continue being and doing some of that hard stuff, but then doing some stuff that you enjoy. I'm 44. I'm having the most fun I've ever had, training myself right now. I'm really at a great Zen state. And I can physically tell everyone I enjoy doing this, you know. There's not really many days that I don't want to go to the gym, but I'm doing I feel amazing. I love what I'm doing. I love the community of strength culture, like where I work at, but I also love my private gym where I know nobody and it's a big LVAC and I people watch and I sometimes just wonder what they're doing, what they're going through, and what their mission is. Because at the end of the day, we're all bodybuilders. The moment that you step in that gym and you're working your body, like you may not compete, but what else are you doing? You're building your body, which allows you to build your mind and it's kind of a vulnerable place to be in. That's why I kind of hate to see people like making fun of people in the gym because they're there for a specific reason because they maybe aren't happy with something on their body or they just want to better themselves. So how can we laugh at that? Um,
Right.
sometimes we do weird exercises, sometimes we do partials, and I might see someone walk in while I'm doing like partial tricep extensions after I just did, 10 full range reps. And then I kind of wonder, I hope they don't think I did my entire set just
But
with like
really,
minimal range of motion, you know? But I'm like,
me every time I do lateral raises and I have to do partials, I'm like, I swear I can lift them higher.
yeah, I swear I did 15 full range reps before my halves, so but at the end of the day, we're all there for a reason. We're all there getting that pump to burn and the continuous spiritual and mental growth of all of this.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And honestly, like we've got to love it. And I think if you don't have the love and the passion for it, it's gonna be really hard to sustain it. And I can say after 10 years of being in this sport, and I have no regrets. Some people ask, "Oh, are you gonna regret leaving bodybuilding without a pro card?" No. I the journey spoke for itself. It was rewarding enough for me. My identity wasn't rooted in a pro card, and that I think also made a big difference. And I have so much more to show for it. I get to do things like this and connect with amazing people in the industry and support them in their journeys with mental health. Like the pro card would have been incredible, of course, and it would have been awesome to be talking about that. This is awesome too, and I feel amazing. And I've been asked like what made this prep better. It seems so much better. It seems so much better. I can just point to my husband. I can point to my stepson. I can point to my nephew. Obviously, I point to you. We've done that this whole episode. But like I point and I'm like, that's it. That's the better. The better is everything in my life and everybody in my life. And um, I think it's underestimated what prioritizing other things can do for you as an athlete. Like you're better um, can really actually start in your mind or in your relationships. Like this prep, I not only, we started prep. I had bought a house during improvement season. We started prep. I met the love of my life. I got engaged, eloped. I have a stepson now. And then now we move on to other things in life. And I got to compete all in the midst of that while doing speaking engagements, while running my business, while doing the podcast. I mean, and it was the first time I prepped without being in school full time. So that was
True.
also a big deal. So yeah, I guess I'm trying to say is like you do have to love this. And I think the love for it is also going to help sustain you when you're done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point. People don't recognize like having the correct household, not pushing that box of unanswered things off to the corner and hoping you won't have to face it when prep is over. You need to be in the right environment. And I see this oftentimes with clients where maybe we try and we know the home life isn't the best. And they've maybe even told me, and then they decide to put the prep on pause. Maybe they get divorced or something like that. Then they come back around and it's like things are cruising, and things, it's like you're working with a whole different person. I've worked with people who have gotten over alcohol addiction, and it's been a game changer, when they're not drinking. I've worked with people who have recovered from binge eating, and obviously that makes a huge difference. Um, you Bodybuilding, to really do it, is going to challenge you in all aspects of your life, and that's what I love about it. And you're always going to feel like spread thin, but you're making like the biggest investment for yourself. And the rewards to that don't always have to be a pro card. But I think the one thing that makes me so happy and proud of you is how thankful you are for the journey, where I've kind of seen where some people are so resentful about the journey. And I'm like, man, you're missing the plot of the movie here, where you did all these things that made you great. And you don't have to hold that physical appearance to have it make you great. You could be 300 pounds post your prep and still be pretty mentally great. Now, I don't recommend that, but you can learn a lot of great lessons from bodybuilding. Maybe you have a Fortune 500, you know, $1 million company, and you're overweight because you're just prioritizing your business now. But what you learn from bodybuilding will always be there to get you back to that place. I've certainly had times where I was in not as great of shape post comp, or I'm in much better shape now than I even was, 8 months ago. But it's always there. You never lose that knowledge. And I think how you approach it is really important, because how you approach it will likely be how you get there again. And whether that's PED use, um, if you had to use a lot of PEDs to get your body weight down, you might always resort to that. And it just kind of depends on the level you're at. But hopefully you can, if you're just trying to lose weight and get back to not being maybe an IFBB pro physique again, you can say, hey, maybe I can just do X, Y, and Z, the nutrition part, and get down to like a reasonable everyday living healthy life, and there's also, I don't do just competition prep. We help ex competitors get back into shape all the time.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And especially when you have competed before, if you end up coming back, there's probably so much going through your head of like, well, should I still do this? Should I not? I don't want to compete, but I'm going to do that. So having that guidance is wonderful. And I appreciate what you said. And I definitely don't have any resentment towards the sport, I'm not jaded. I think people should compete. I think people should go for their pro card. I think if it takes you 10 years, 20 years, 12 years, 1 year, go for it. I think there's the beauty is not if you get it, it's the pursuit of that. So it's very fulfilling journey no matter what. It's funny because I host a podcast called Confessions of a Bikini Pro. So you would think that I put that pro card on a pedestal. In reality, though, in talking to so many pros, it's funny, Adam. I'm like, wow, they're all just like us amateurs, like we're all competitors who love bodybuilding and who aspire to be better in our life and apply that. So I'm really grateful
Yeah.
for you saying that and being part of this.
Absolutely. We're all human. We all have feelings. We also have different goals and aspirations. And you know,
True.
we kind of need to support people on what they're doing and how they're doing it, unless it's hurting that person, And again, from an outsider in, so many people judge certain competitors based on what they're doing, but I could care less their opinion, because they haven't, again, they haven't earned the care of the person to be firm anyhow. It's just kind of hatred that makes them try to look like they're caring, and if it's a best friend who's like, hey, I'm concerned about someone doing X, Y, and Z, that I'm going to listen to more than just a random person. It kind of sucks. I train a pretty big person right now, and there's people who comment like, you're going to die. And I know this person well, and it's horrible to have messages like that online, and it's the way he chooses to live, and it's his lifestyle. Behind scenes, we're doing things to help him with his health, and he's following through on a lot of those things. And I can't imagine him being anybody else with his life, and that's why I love him.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's really about respecting every person and their journey and being kind enough to acknowledge, like, hey, maybe there's a reason that they're doing it this way. Whether even when it comes to people who haven't competed before, but they get on stage and they don't maybe look the way you would expect them to look. And then people hate on them, and it's like bodybuilding shouldn't be just. I'm sure you've seen the comments on certain posts, like if there's stage photos and one person just doesn't look like they belong, the comments can be so mean. And I just think about so many of the women that I've supported with their mental health, and I'm like, I can't imagine. I mean, everything that they've been through and gone through, and all the effort to get on stage. I can't imagine them getting up there and having people say that. I think it doesn't do bodybuilding justice because, um, yeah, people can say it about that person just like they can say it about the open bodybuilders, you know? But I feel like the judging should be left to the judges.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Someone made the effort to get up there, and I have seen like a lot recently controversy of somebody competing, and I think that's between her and her coach and what the dynamic is. I'm pretty sure her coach isn't saying like you're gonna kill and win it, and
Right.
I've had competitors that way where, they've lost maybe 100 to 150 pounds to get on stage, and bodybuilding is what gave them the goal to compete and to lose that weight. I think, maybe they're not going to win, but it really elevates their life. And the worst thing is when a client does do that and they get some negative comments, it ruins their day and makes them kind of consider, the work that we did. Like, did we do the right thing? And I think as much as people try to investigate, how they're going to feel on stage, nothing really lives up to when you get on stage and get judged or you see the outcome, as much as we try to prepare people for that. Heck, we have it with national competitors, maybe someone was just edged out in the top five, but they feel like a failure, which makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I think we've got to support each other. And I had interviewed Emily Chanel for when she went pro as a fit model. And, I was so impressed by her mindset in that little mini interview I did. And I asked her about like the hatred some of the fit model division has been getting. And she had such a great response to it. And I just think it's important as competitors, like we've got to have a strong head on our shoulders and be willing to understand like entering in this sport. Like there's going to be feedback, especially with a new division like that. I know you're working with so many fit model competitors now. I think you have the most fit model wins, don't you?
We had the most overalls, and we had the first US based pro card. So yeah, but it's been an amazing ride, but I I had competitors way back when bikini looked a little bit more like fit model. I had figure clients who were drug free and we transferred them into bikini right away. So very similar with this. I took some of my natural bikini girls, and I'll just say I'm lucky that I had a great pool of athletes to be able to say, this is the division for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know that it was presented to me and I was like, no, only because I knew it was the end for me. And I was like, I don't want to go out in bikini. I want to go out in bikini. I know that even if I didn't win a pro card, I at least gave my all to that division. And fit model's so cool though, because when I started in 2015, that was fit model. It was those poses. It was that stage presence. So some part of me is like, oh, that would have been kind of cool to see that. But then now I'm like, no, I'm so glad I finished in bikini, and I want to encourage other competitors. Like, there's obviously going to be divisions that are right for you, physique wise,
Hmm.
and then there may be divisions you're in between, and maybe there's just divisions that you really, really love. I think is if you have insane potential, obviously maybe really consider it. But if it's just to make you happy and you want to go for it, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking the approach that I did. It's my last one. Let's just keep it in bikini. If it's going to make you happy, why not? It's not always about seeing the potential. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't let the placement always be the successor of the outcome.
Exactly. So, I don't think we have anything else to cover. I'm looking at it, and the only other one was about our goals, but we talked about that, and then was about why call it retirement instead of life season. I mean, in all honesty, I it will take an act of God to probably bring me back to the stage. I'm not saying 100% never, but like 99% sure. I just don't know about it. I don't know about it. That's why I call it retirement because I'm that. I'm pretty sure it's not. For me, life season is like what I mean, bodybuilding is life season for me. You know, like I was already living life even in prep. I was already living life throughout my bodybuilding journey. So 10 years, I mean, I would hope I've had a life season through that. I would consider the last 10 years of my life to be an incredible season. So it almost doesn't feel right to call it life season for that too. Because I'm like, well, I've still lived my life so fully and incredibly for this last decade. Like, so I really am retiring from a sport, but keeping my life.
And for you, you get to pour your soul into other people who are living this lifestyle. So even though you're personally retired or benched for right now,
Yeah.
you get to coach and help other people, from the mental perspective. And I think that's awesome. And, you know, like you said, never say never, but right now it's not going to resonate with you because a lot of times the line just needs to be drawn and people need to
Mhm.
understand that, for me to succeed in what I want to do in the future and take my lessons from bodybuilding into the rest of my life, I just need to say the stage just isn't there for me right now. I've been losing weight and going to the gym, and people ask me, are you going to compete? And the moment I think about it, I'm just like, God, it really stresses me out because one, I'd have to prioritize myself before my clients just to really do it the way I would want to do it. And I'm just not willing to risk my work for my clients to do something I've already done, And I really love doing this through other vessels, and I my clients get to be that vessel for me. It's just as good, if not better, than me getting on stage. I get to work with people who maybe have a little bit better gifted genetics, but maybe the mindset's not there. I get to help them with that and just really be a value. I don't have kids like my competitors are, my kids, my children, my relationships, and I've gotten better about just kind of dividing like personal life and coaching to these past couple years where like yes, I hate to lose people, but at the same time I handle loss way better than I used to because I just understand that athletes have to make decisions, and that's just it's nothing personal, it's just a relationship, but I still love and care about those people afterwards and they know that my door is open. And I think sometimes that just takes experiencing life a little bit more, seeing people come back around a lot after they've tried other things because they're like, man, I thought at this time I needed that. I tried it. I just had this conversation with a client. She said, you were the only coach that actually listened to me. Every time I told a coach I had, some kind of issue, like, or I had a client who's a amputee, and she's like, I had a coach put alternating bicep curls on my plan, and it's she's like, I've tried other things, it just doesn't work. You're the only one who would remember to not put these things on my workouts, and I think that just I'm not for everybody, but I'm for most people, I think, and it's
Hmm.
just developing that trust and just getting the confidence in what you do. And I think it took me moving to Vegas, getting settled, and just kind of restructuring my offer in a way to complement what I was currently doing and the growth that I was experiencing. And I think originally have a little bit of had a little bit of imposter syndrome where I don't have it now. I think I had to get over that to even just have my own value in place. And that's just really made things a lot more cohesive. I know that's kind of a long rant, but
No, it's
um,
great.
I think that, very much I'm retired from bodybuilding, but I'm still bodybuilding from a physical and mental perspective on a day-to-day basis, whether it be my coaching, my body, or even, my relationships with people.
Oh, for sure. It's an incredible thing and it's a gift. And I feel incredibly grateful that I do work in this niche and industry so I can continue to serve in the way that I have with mental health. Like that won't change. I had people ask, like, oh, are you still going to do the podcast? Are you still going to do mental health? Yes, the podcast is staying. The mental health offers I have and coaching I do, it's only going to keep getting better, honestly, because I'll have even more of that, I guess, time and focus and energy going into what I can create and contribute. So, thank you for doing this with me, Adam. I know maybe we'll do another one, but you've been incredible, and I'm glad we could do a recap.
Absolutely. It was great to be on with you.
Always, like, it's truly a blessing to call you my coach and my friend. I would love for people to be able to connect with you, work with you. So, how can they do that?
So they can go to my Instagram and it is at see you later leaner.
Yep, perfect. And then if you guys have any questions or you want some mental health support, reach out to me at celestial_fit or visit my website, www.celestial.fit. I've got tons of free resources, service opportunities, and support that you can find there. And I'm happy to point you in the right direction based on what your needs are. So, with all that being said, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.